Hi guys, Faxi Nadu here. Today we're going to take a look at Romplers, which are a type of synth. We're going to take a look at them in general, and we're going to take a closer look at EMU Romplers through this particular orbit module. So what are Romplers? Basically, they're called that way from the word Rom, which implies memory. What it means is that it's actually certain instruments, recorded instruments, that are stored in memory and are loaded up in a sort of editor with various synthesis functions like filtering and envelopes and LFOs and whatnot. So what they basically are samplers that can sample. They come with prefabbed sound set, more or less. So some of them do have the ability to add extra sound. If you take a look over here, we have a Roland, such a module from Roland, the JV880, and you see here there are two slots for cards, PCM card and data card. So this module comes with certain sounds inside the box, as well as these weird cards that you can buy, and this one in particular is a electric guitar sound library. It has a whole whopping, 4 megabytes of sounds on it. So this is really old school. Which brings me to another point. All these modules are obviously old school type of stuff. The first thing that you probably are thinking right now, if you haven't used these before, is why the heck would I need one of these where I can totally get a ton of sampled instruments, via virtual instruments, like let's say Native Instruments Contact libraries, or Giga Sampler, Giga Studio, and even like VSTI, like Steinberg Hypersonic, and even stuff like the FM8 can do all these pads and cool sounds and sort of instrumental sounds. So why would you need one of those? Well, obviously the answer is you don't need one of those, but I personally have developed a sort of fetish for them. One of the reasons that I really like them is because you can get really old school sounds, really classic sounds that way. It was an era, I guess, where you paid a lot of good money, like this little box right here when it was brand new. If you look online, you can still find articles, reviews, like on Sound on Sound, reviewing it when it came out in 1998, 99 or so. And it cost like 900 British pounds when it was new. So it was a finished product, a professional grade product with professional grade sounds back then, and the sounds are still great today. Really, really amazing. Really, all of the presets here, almost all of them sound good. In a weird kind of way of how fashion goes. Maybe after a certain time, it became really corny sounds, but now it's really cool retro sounds. So really nice, and there's a big variety, and there's a difference in sound between stuff from, let's say, Roland and Korg modules. If you take a look at the Triton, it's basically such a module but in a keyboard format. It's also an instrumental type machine. And if we're going back to the EMU, again, it has a different sound. It has a certain characteristic to it. The various EMU modules, EMU has a ton of these, just saying. So the various EMU modules have different sounds in them and different types of stuff, but they all have that EMU character, as well as the Roland and as well as any other company. So let's take a look just really quickly, just to mention, the build quality on most of these is obviously great, because if you're going to make one of these that is messed up build quality, then you really messed something up, because it has nothing. If you look, they don't really have a lot of knobs. They don't really have a lot of stuff going on, right? All you need is a box. What it had is it's just a CPU and a memory stick inside. That's all it is in a metal box. So the build quality is obviously great. And let's say this one, it's already like 16 years or so, and it survived really well. One of the things that I do would like to mention about the build quality is you have to be really careful with these when buying them. Because like any old gear, they can have wear and tear, and it will be harder to notice this wear and tear, as opposed to, let's say you were going to buy an Novation K-Station like mine, and like the first thing you would notice is mine has, I switched one of the knobs because one of them broke, and you know, certain stuff like that you could really easily notice on a synth. But on a module like this, you know, you'd power it up, you'd see that the LCD screen, you know, still has good contrast and works, and you'd think that it's great, but it does. There are possibilities for wear and tear. What I have noticed often with these modules is if you look at the back at the outputs, then often one of the outputs won't be as loud as the other one, or won't work as well. Obviously, these are things that you can fix if you have some knowledge, or take it to someone to fix. But again, it kind of negates one of the pros that I was going to mention, that these come in really cheap these days. So if you're to get one really cheap, but then have to spend money and time on fixing them up, then kind of negates the point. But if you find one that is in good condition, I say great, but check it out. Don't just check it out externally. Insist on hearing it, making sure that it works fine, and that the data knob, you know, works fine and doesn't jump around and stuff like that, because I have noticed it on some of the other ones that I had. So that's as far as the hardware itself goes. Again, I wrote myself some pros and cons. As you see, there's not a lot. The big pro, again, is that it's very cheap these days. I got that module, the Roland one, for like 250 shekels, which is like, I don't know, 40 euro, 50 euro. And this one I got for 400 shekels, which would be like, I don't know, 75 euro, 70 euro, something like that. Maybe a little bit more, less than 100 anyways. So for the price, let's say, of a synth, let's say this Novation, which is great, right? But I could get 3 or 4 of these modules, even more maybe. So yeah, they're very cheap these days, and that is probably the best thing going for them. And again, the sound quality is another great thing about them. But now, really, I gotta kind of rip on these devices a little bit. As you can see, both this and the Roland over there, and if you get, you know, there's other companies that make them, like Korg, and maybe there were Yamaha ones, I'm not sure, but Korg I know they had. And there are others, of course. All of these have really tiny LCD screens. I don't know if you can see with the camera with the contrast, but it's really cryptic, right? And to edit around with the LCD screen, what would you have to do is go with as you can see, this is the volume knob, and this is the data knob. That's just the two knobs that I have here, right? So if I want to, you know, change presets, change preset names, everything, I have to kind of scroll the cursor to the spot that I wanted to, not the spot, let's say the function that I want to affect. And then with the data knob, this is actually like my universal knob for every single function. So it's really cryptic. And some of these machines, let's say the EMU Morpheus, which my friend Kyle just got, the Morpheus has amazing functions inside, like all these different filters and different things that it does, and crossfading and crazy stuff. And you know, there's just no fucking way to edit it, right? I mean, you're not going to go into every single thing, and you can't. You don't see it, right? You don't feel it. Obviously, if you want to shorten the decay on an envelope, yeah, you'll find that and you can do it. But if you want to really get deep into the programming, to me, I mean, come on, even if you're really good with synth, it's almost impossible. It's just not it, you know, it's not musical to work like that. So keep that in mind. Another thing, you can obviously do real-time manipulation just with the machine. Let's say you want to control the filter, so you just find the filter and you can move it with the data knob while you're playing, and it will affect the filter. But because you have just this one knob, you can't do multiple things, right? You can't, let's say, hold a note, send some MIDI notes, and automate the filter and the decay at the same time, like we often do on the K stations. It's not possible, because you can only, once you lock into a function, the data knob is just that one function. So that's another thing to keep in mind. Now, obviously, you'd be saying, well, you can hook it up to controllers, right? So yes, of course you can. It entails a little bit of tweaking around. You have to look for the manual, and it is available online. It's no problem to find it, and find the MIDI chart, and then you can tell knobs, different knobs. If you have like a MIDI keyboard like this, like the Akai MPK25, which comes with a program where I can actually tell it each knob which MIDI controller number to be, and I can correspond to different knobs in the module. Now this is not true, what I'm going to say is not true for all modules. Each company did a little bit different, but while we're talking about the Proteus EMU line of modules, they did a couple of really kind of weird things inside. Let's say if you know MIDI implementation, then over MIDI each knob passes parameters. The values can be between 1 and 127. What they did inside here is the filter, the parameters are from 0 to 255. So if you're moving this knob and this knob goes from 0 to 127, so you can only open the filter halfway, obviously, and you don't want that. So yes, you can, I don't know, open something that can convert MIDI messages, scale things like in Max MSP or something like that, and scale 1 to 127 to be 1 to 255. You can, but it's awkward, right? And it's going to result in a little bit of steppiness. Maybe it's just, again, it's not musical, and it's just not what we're looking for. So it's a little bit weird. Again, everything that you would want to do real time as far as controlling this is a little iffy. There are dedicated command stations for this thing, for these modules from EMU, but it's kind of hard to find them, and again it entails spending some more cash, so again, something to keep in mind. What you do have for some of these modules, I guess not for all of them, it's kind of also hard to find, you do have editors. Now the editors are really old. This one, when you load it up, it's from 1998 or 99. There we go. Orbit Edit 1.0, 1998, 99. Some guy. You know, it's not even officially from EMU. It does work. Let's see. I can switch presets, and you can listen how nice the sound is, right? The presets. Again, this brings me back. All the cons that I'm talking about, you know, it's a little bit negated when you get like for really cheap for 50 euro or something, 70 euro. You probably can't hear it through the phone, but the tone is really rich. Goes from, you know, really nice kind of bassy tone to really nice mids and trebles. It's a really rich character. Stereo is great. The built-in sounds, they're just great. And using this editor, you can obviously edit it a little bit. It's not really great for real time, and it doesn't always respond in the way you think it will. Like I'm moving the filter now, and as you notice, it's not doing that much. Sometimes it wants to play nice, sometimes it doesn't want to play nice, but it does give you a little bit of insight into editing these sounds that you would otherwise really not have just with the machine. Comes with the virtual keyboard. Oh, and right now it's going through, it's going through an effect in scope, okay, but it was just the delay line. This is just cleanly the machine. So, again, going back to the editor. So you can see, you can look at the functions, you can assign whatever you need to do, look at controllers, look at the setup. And it has another mode. If you look here, you can see Beats mode. Beats mode, you can turn it on also with the machine itself by pressing these two knobs. And what it basically is sort of like MIDI lines, so you can then play on the different presets. If you want to record some loops, you got a really great source for really nice professional drum loops. Really nice. I would take some of these gladly, why not? So you do have a lot of really good classic beats, especially on the Orbit, but on the other Proteus iterations, there's also sorts of beats modes, and each and every one deals with other stuff. So there's different things on the different machines. Now I want to go into kind of a way of looking at it. Like I've really kind of dissed this and went into the cons and the messed up things about it and about how hard it is to edit. But if you look at it in a kind of like a different kind of way, let's say you look at it as an oscillator. Let's say this is just your oscillator. Look at it like resampling. You're taking the sound from this sampler as it is. You're taking a preset, right? You're taking an instrumental preset. Let's say this guy, okay? And obviously you can put effects on it and stuff like that, but also you can, let's say you don't even have an editor. So yeah, let's say you have just this machine and you want to have a little bit of control on it. So all you got to do is think of it as an oscillator, like I said. And you can pass it through, let's say you have like a modular system. It can be any modular. I'm using the Creamer Sonic Core Scope modular system. And what I have here is just a very simple setup where I have a stereo. I have, you know, two sides, double. So I have an envelope for the amp, an ADSR envelope for the amplifier, AD envelope, sorry. A filter, and an LFO. Just set it up really quickly, just so I can show you. So I kind of, you know, use it as it is. This would be my sound. And I have a little MIDI clip running here, you can see. Oops, it's in Beats mode. So let's take it out of Beats mode. There we go. So this would be the sound, how it would play. This is straight from the machine. And now I'm turning on the filter and the envelope. Let's find a sound where it will be nice. So this will be without. And now I have myself my own envelope that I also control with an LFO. It's opening up the decay a little bit. And a filter. So, just the point of me showing you just this is that instead of going to war with this machine, then I can just say, okay, this is a nice bass sound. I'll treat it like a sampler. This is my sample. This is my instrument, and I'll just pass it through my own shit and get really get it to be unique. And I think this combination actually of using these really cool classic Rompler sounds, really good sounds, core sounds, with modulars and crazy things, and using them as like oscillators and sort of like wavetables, right? You can get really unique and really great stuff this way. So I want to look just to close up at, you know, we talked about this as hardware, and I know, like, as you're watching this video, you're probably thinking, but I can do all of that in software, right? I can just get some contact libraries, and why do I need this? So I did say, yeah, classic sounds, blah, blah, blah. But another thing to look at is, you know, I'm sure all of you buy all of your plugins, right? So if you were to buy a contact library, today I saw something new from East West, some string library. That library is $1,500, which is crazy. For $1,500, if I translate it to my country's currency, I can get about 30 of these. Different ones from different, I can get like every single damn module that ever came out. So if you're looking at pricing and the values and the prices that sample packs that are good and that are actually instrumental ones, I'm not talking just like one-shot drums. We make our own samples too. We sell samples, but they're just one-shot drums and effects and stuff like that. This is actually a synth, right? So a synth with this big of a palette for this price is worth looking into, I think. Last thing, let's look at a software option from EMU that unfortunately does not really exist anymore. I don't know if you can still find it. I did some research before doing the video. EMU actually had a few versions of software samplers. The first one was called Proteus X, Proteus X2, and then the next version was the Emulator X2, and then the Emulator X3. They are all discontinued now. So I went into Creative Labs bought EMU, so I went into the web shop and tried to look at this product, and there's an end of service life notice. You can't buy it even if you want to. I've looked for it a little bit online, but it seems a little bit problematic. It seems that to actually run this, you need an EMU hardware sound card or other hardware. I don't know. It's really, don't really understand what's going on. If you're lucky enough, if you have this in software, then it should be really great. The software one comes with actually all of the ones that they released, like all the different modules, all the sound sets in one software module, which could have been great. I wish I could have it. I'll still look around for a little more. What you can download, and it's even free, is Proteus VX, which is a VSTI instrument that is just this, a Rompler from EMU, and it's free, and it comes with one sound set. I'm not exactly sure what's inside. I think some orchestral stuff, so that's pretty nice. Again, some software alternatives that we have talked about. If you want something, you can get, of course, those huge libraries that come right now that are gigabytes and gigabytes, but you can also look for something like Steinberg Hypersonic, like I said, which is only a few hundred megabytes and has a lot of sounds and functions in a sort of similar way. I do think that the EMU and the Roland ones, they do sound better, a little bit better than some of the software Romplers. Again, it is hardware, and it was top of the line type of stuff when it came out. So check them out. If you kind of know what to expect, then you won't be disappointed. If you're expecting something that is highly editable and really crazy synthesis and stuff like that, that's not it. You're going to have to bring in your own kind of creative thinking to get the most out of these. But if you do that, I think you'll be happy with them. Have a good one. I hope you kind of found some information. Watch our other videos. See you next time.